Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Wow, I'm excited today for our guest. But before I introduce you to them, here's a quote that I think really symbolizes one of the strengths of our guest. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. Mark Twain, our guest today, is a man of candor, a leader amongst leaders, member of the top contractor school, founder, Proline Paving. Oh my God, Proline parking lot maintenance. I'm a little nervous. I mean, frankly, because our guest is the type of person who will say it how he sees it. He started his company about 8 years ago, a little bit under 8 years ago, and went from zero to hero real fast. He's got a nationwide franchising business. He's a wealth of knowledge, a systems guy, but a people guy too, and doesn't mind being the contrarian. And even, we had a special moment when we first met where I got to see his leadership and made me better. And that's what I think about our guest. So Daniel Wright, please pay attention if you're listening to this because you're going to learn today.
I'm here to have a good time with you, Jay. So I appreciate the introduction. Appreciate you having me on. I know you got a lot of folks you could choose from, and you were quick to jump on it when we were up in Pittsburgh together a couple weeks back. So you said, "Hey, we need to get you on the schedule and make this happen." So I'm happy to be here. I'm super proud of what you're doing, your commitment, and your dedication to what you're doing to try and serve other people through the Culture Matters podcast.
I
It's
need a
it's pretty cool
podcast
to see
audit. So you're the
do
guy.
what.
A podcast audit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, I either latch on to a podcast or I don't. I give it like one or two shots, and I'm like, hey, it is what it is. So, but no, I appreciate the dedication that you have to it. It takes a lot to do that, and proud of you for it.
I'd like to mention your podcast, Paving the Way podcast. For our listeners, take a look at that podcast. When did you start that and why?
So I started the Paving the Way podcast early this year, early 2023. I believe it was sometime around February or so. To be honest, like you mentioned, being part of top contractor school and stuff, one of the big things that gets discussed in that group is, putting yourself out there, publicity, and just turning the camera on and seeing what happens. And so many people, I think it's a mix. You get people who are either so gun shy that they never do anything, or you get people who just don't give a crap and they just go, hog wild and start posting everything. But I wanted to figure out, I'm like, you know what? I've been told by multiple people multiple times that, man, like you should really start putting some of this information out there. You've experienced a lot, you've learned a lot, you should be teaching other people this. And so finally, I literally just woke up one day and turned on. I think I asked Brian what software he uses or whatever for recording it. He told me it was, StreamYard, and so I hopped on. I bought StreamYard for a year, and so I don't know how this works, but I'm gonna hit record and sat in front of a computer, and here we are, 88 episodes at the time of recording this. I think we're 86, 88 episodes in. So,
Wow.
but
Were you nervous the first time?
I had no idea what to talk about, which is, kind of funny knowing me because I can talk about anything and a lot of things. But when you're sitting there just staring at the screen, you don't have a guest on there. You don't have, a script that you're just reading, things like that. You're just kind of like figuring out what's relevant. And that's kind of the model that I've tried to follow with the podcast is only really discussing things that are relevant. That's why I don't really like to pre-record a lot of things more than like a day or two in advance. Um, cat's out of the bag. I don't do it every morning at 7 a.m., even though it says live on Facebook and Instagram. It's typically done a day or so before, but it's all relevant. It's stuff that I'm going through personally, professionally. So that way I'm speaking from experience, not just trying to think of things that people would want to hear. I'd rather speak from the heart and from experience.
I've seen you on Facebook Live. On people really tune
Yep.
in, or not
Yep.
Facebook
So
Live,
when
but on Facebook, I see you doing the
Yep.
show.
Yep. Yep. I know you've mentioned that a couple times to me. So it's fun, man. I just put it out there for whoever can get benefit and value out of it, and then that's what we're trying to aim for. So,
What would be your advice to someone listening to this that wants to start a platform like that?
Honestly, it probably just take the same initiative that I did and just start. As long as your intentions are pure, they say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? So I think there's a balance on that. But as long as your intentions are pure, that hey, I just want to genuinely provide value to other people, whether it's somebody who wants to speak on business or marriage or health and fitness or whatever it may be, as long as you're genuinely trying to provide value, I say just turn the camera on and go for it. Because our friend Alex Hormozy, well, I consider him my friend because I listen to a lot of his content, but he talks about that when he was writing his last book that he put out, that his publisher, who he was working with, he rewrote the book like 19 times. And he said like he started getting defeated and wanted to give up on it. And his publisher kept telling him, he said, you know what, Alex? He said, you can give up on it. But the one guy who lives over in the Middle East, who never doesn't really have a lot of access to education and knowledge and things like that, is going to get his hands on this book. And he has maybe the only thing he owns is his bed, and he has one goat. And he says, so that one guy with the one goat is going to sleep with your book under his pillow.
Wow.
And if you can make a difference in that guy's life, would you write this book one more time? And so that's what Alex had to keep reminding himself of when he was really trying to pour all the value he could into it. And so to the point I'm trying to make is that even if it's only one person who hears what your message has to say and it resonate with them, that's value enough. I understand there's billions of people on the planet, but if you can change one person's life, is that not worthwhile doing it? So
It was you were 18 years old in 2008. Did the Great Recession have anything to do with you wanting to become an entrepreneur?
no, it did not. I saw minor effects of it because at the time my father worked for a construction company, a home building company, and when that all kind of collapsed, he got laid off, like a lot of guys did. And I had a company already. I had a small lawn care company, residential lawn care service. I had started in high school. He would kind of help me with it occasionally, but when he got laid off in 2008, 2009 area, he jumped into the business we already had going like harder. And so we turned it into a full-time thing where him and I were working with a couple other of people on the team, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, actually doing full service work. So that the 08, 09 area did not really have anything to do with me wanting to be an entrepreneur. I've always had that drive ever since I was in grade school. But it was around that 08, 09 area is when I finally first got like the first taste of blood of entrepreneurship to see what it actually was like. And I haven't looked back since.
Uh, the landscaping business. When did you start that?
I started that when I was 15 years old. Like a lot of high school boys do, they're trying to earn money on the weekends or after school. So they just ask to borrow dad's lawnmower and go mow grass in the neighborhood. And that's pretty much what I did. At 15 years old, I'd gotten it up to where I was mowing 25 yards on a Saturday.
Wow.
And I was, making great money and blew every penny of it. So that was fun. But no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking with clients, with adults. I was 15 and my client bases was probably in their 40s and 50s. So from an early age, I'm now 33. So for 17 years, 18 years, I've been having to just communicate and talk to clients. And that's just been what I've done. So between that job and then other places I've worked, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in other customer service areas. I've always had to communicate with clients. So it's been a normal thing to me to have to speak with them. But I enjoy being able to communicate with them more on my terms as the entrepreneur and the business owner versus being, under the, I guess, the thumb and the guidance of a corporate umbrella.
Do you remember that first thought to be an entrepreneur when you were in grade school?
Yeah, so the story with that is our school at the time, our elementary school had every year they did a cookie fundraiser. And these cookies were called cowboy cookies. So they were a version of like chocolate chip cookies. They were absolutely delicious. I wish I still had the recipe to them, but I don't. But nonetheless, and I think it was around fourth grade or so, they basically built a business for the students to run. You had to apply for jobs. You had to go through an interview process with the teachers. Like it was really an intricate process. The whole goal of it was to develop the cookie company, the business, sell the cookies for fundraisers, and obviously the money went back into the school and stuff. But I applied, and I remember it that I applied for and got the position as the CEO. If my mom tells the story, she remembers that I was the CFO, like the financial officer. Nonetheless, though, I was in a C-suite position as a fourth grader. But I loved it. I love the excitement of it. I love the like having to oversee people and like making sure this got done, that got done, that got done. So you said I was a man of processes and systems. That's probably where it really started the first opportunity. Because I don't know if you've ever baked cookies before, but if you have, or you haven't, okay. Well, my wife will have to teach you sometime. We'll get together and she will run a baking class. She
Yeah.
loves doing it. She does it in her sleep. But if you bake cookies or bake anything, you have to follow a specific order. You can't, just start dumping stuff in a bowl and mix it all up and hope you get a good cookie. You have to follow a specific process to get the cookies you want. So in running that cookie company, we had to follow a process in fourth grade. So it really was just an opportunity to open up that, I guess, that view of how important following processes and procedures are.
Did you want to be a very successful person young, or did that come through the working in your teens?
I always wanted to be successful. I never really had a lot of little young boys and stuff. They have the dream of say, I want to be an astronaut or I want to be a firefighter. Or I want to be a police. Like I always wanted to just be a business owner. Like that's what I wanted. So I wanted to work. I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want, wherever I want. Um, I wanted ultimate freedom. I wanted to be able to help other people. That's something I've always enjoyed doing is being able to lend a helping hand, whether that's with time, with talents, with finances, anything like that is something I've always enjoyed doing. And when you're a business owner and you're a successful business owner at that, the cap in which you can help other people is unlimited.
Hmm.
So that's what's been a big driver of it. I have also been fortunate. My grandfather, he was a business owner. He sold his company after 30 to, I think it was 30, 35 years. He owned it, sold it about 5-ish years ago to enjoy retirement. He's well into his 70s now, so he's getting to enjoy life, enjoy the fruits of his labor. But that was always kind of a
Huh.
like an inspiration, to see that it is possible to be successful and to achieve business ownership and success.
What does he think of all you've accomplished?
He tells me he's proud of it. He tells me what he likes what we're doing. He likes the industry that we're in, the fact that it's a needed market, pavement maintenance. As long as we have cars that drive on the road, we'll always need to have work done on the roads and the parking lots. So it's a good industry to be in. He actually really values I guess admires the fact that we're integrated in a group like Top Contractor School because he's told me multiple times that over the course of his career he was in different associations or organizations similar to that, and he said the value that you can get out of those relationships that you build is you can't put a dollar amount on it. So I'd say, I mean, overall I'd say he's very supportive of it. I'd say if he were sitting right here, I'd say that he's proud of what we're doing and proud of where we're going. Um,
For those that don't understand or know what Proline is, what do you guys actually do?
so the easy way to put it is that we do anything and everything parking lot maintenance. So if you park in it, we maintain it. The only thing we don't do is lights. We don't do parking lot lights
Hmm.
because I don't really care to do heights and have bucket trucks and things like that. So it's all on the ground. So your sidewalks, your curbs, your asphalt parking lot, loading docks at logistic facilities, things like that. Anything like that, where if you're driving on it and there's an arrow or a parking lot line or whatever it may be, we maintain all that stuff. So sealing, repairs, pavement markings, signage, things like that.
Why is that important to a business?
Depending on how you look at it, if your parking lot is old and falling apart, maintaining it is important due to liability reasons. So if you have a parking lot with a bunch of potholes or big cracks or elevation changes or things like that, that can be trip hazards. It can be things where people can damage their vehicles and then file a lawsuit, so on and so forth. If you have a newer parking lot that is something that is, that you're trying to keep looking good, just like right when you get a new car or a new home, you are anal retentive about keeping it clean and looking nice because you just invested a lot of money in that. So on the newer ones where we're going in and refreshing the lines, or we're just, sealing the cracks and just really trying to maintain it and seal coating it, the parking lot, things like that, you're increasing the curb appeal by, 100 times. And when people pull up to a business in their car, the first thing they're doing, aside from making sure they're at the right business, the next thing that they're doing is looking, where do I park? So they are driving through your lot, either finding a drive-through if you're going to a McDonald's, finding a parking spot if you're at Walmart, looking for a pickup zone if you ordered groceries online on where to park. So like you have to give direction and um, organization to the parking lot, as well as keeping traffic flow safe, making sure people aren't smashing into each other, things like that. But I always tell folks in our industry, everything that we put on your parking lot for arrows and pavement markings and things like that are merely suggestions. What people choose to do with their vehicles when they drive on your parking lot is entirely up to them, but we can only put the suggestions down. So we get folks that ask us, well, if we put this here, will it guarantee that people won't drive the wrong way? And I'm like, absolutely not. People don't pay attention to it. In case you haven't noticed, they look at their cell phones more than they look at the road. So,
Hmm.
but we can try. So it covers everybody from a liability standpoint, though.
Why that business? You were 25, right? August when you started, and you could have
Mhm.
done anything, I would think, at 25.
Yeah. So I like to say the 25 floor elevator story is at the time I was a fireman. I was a full-time fireman for a city outside of Charlotte.
Wow.
I'd been a fireman in total for 6 years. I'd been at this department full time for 3 years. And the gentleman who actually started Proline, so I'm not technically the original founder of the company. I worked with him at the fire department. He was a fireman also. He got promoted to a chief's position, so it was more of an administrative role. Well, a lot of firemen, you work shifts. You work a day, you're off for a few, you work 24, things like that. So when he got promoted to that and had to work Monday through Friday, he didn't have time to run the business on the side like he did before. At the time, I had a my wife who was in nursing school full time, so that's its own full time job in itself. We had just gotten married the year before, so we'd been married for almost a year. And I had a lawn care company. I started another lawn care business here in Charlotte, and I also was working part time as a fireman at another department. So I had
Wow.
3 jobs. And he came to me and said, "Hey, look, I'm looking to sell this company. Would you be interested in it? You seem to like to work a lot, so I didn't know if you'd want another job." I had no idea what the business was. I didn't even know parking lot maintenance was a thing. I asked him, I was like, "What do you do? Go pick up trash, or what is this?" So he told me about it. I did some research, talked with Kelsey about it, and we just went ahead and pulled the trigger. So the first time I ever actually turned on a machine to paint the line is when I wrote the check to buy the company. When I bought the company, it had one striping machine, one enclosed trailer, some miscellaneous, tools, supplies, things like that, and then the name of the company. So he had come up with the name, which obviously, I mean, we're still using that name. We branded that name. It's a recognizable brand in our industry. But he started all that, but that's all it was. It was just a part-time job. And then quickly over the years, we're now at, I guess technically we could say that we've crossed the multiple seven-figure mark in revenue. We have 15, well now 16 people. We just hired a new individual to come on starting in January. So we have 16 people on staff, and we're running a full-time organization. It is probably, I would consider us one of the larger players in the pavement maintenance space in Charlotte, which is, if you know anything about Charlotte, it's a very large market that has a lot of competition in it.
What was it about you that he tapped you on the shoulder?
I was never
Or do we
the
need to get the
fireman's
wife in here?
fireman. Yeah, no, I mean, she could probably answer it, but I was never the fireman's fireman. If you've ever met a fireman who's done it for a long time, they eat, sleep, and breathe being a fireman. It is a passion. They don't get paid a ton of money. It's potentially a life-threatening job. That not a lot of thanks. You're helping people at 3 o'clock in the morning with a stub toe or a car wreck or things like that. You're just doing your job because they love it. And I love, like I said earlier, I've always loved helping people. It's always been a passion of mine. But I never, like, when I had to start really asking myself, like, if I were to die at this job, would I feel like I died living out my passion? And the answer is no. So when I was a fireman, I gave it all I had. I mean, I was a good fireman. I mean, the one of the chiefs that I worked for, we did some stuff after I left the department, but we were doing a video and he put in, I didn't know he was going to say it, but we were making a video and he said, man, he's like, Daniel was a hell of a fireman. He was dedicated to everything that he was doing here and he did it to the best of his ability. And we miss having him here. I'm like, oh, thank you. But everybody knew that like my passion was business. So when I was at the department and we had downtime or it was at, late at night or early in the mornings, I was working on figuring out how to build business. And this
Wow.
guy, Craig is his name, who started Proline, he knew that. And so he said, look, if somebody's going to take this thing and run with it, it's probably going to be you. And he'd put at the time 5 years into it. He started it in 2011. Um, no, I'm sorry, 2010 was when he started it. So he'd put 6 years into it as a part-time job and was making fine money to help provide for his family and things like that. But it was just time to move on, and he didn't want to see it go down the drain.
Do you think at some level he kicks himself that he didn't structure it where he got to keep a limited partnership shares or something?
I don't think so. We're still really good friends with him and their family. They were actually just at our house recently for a Christmas party we hosted,
Well,
and
don't play him this.
we talked to him. Yeah,
Millions, millions.
yeah, but he loves hearing about it. He loves seeing it,
Great.
and I mean, I've always told him, I said, whenever the time comes that you retire from the department, if you want to get back into private business, I'm sure we can make a spot for you. So, but he knows that I really attribute where we're at today for him being the one to start it. I mean, he had to blaze that path for the company of Proline to just get it in existence. So, and the fact that he did that and then passed the torch to me to take it on, to carry it on, I have an obligation to succeed with it.
Do you believe it
So
was a good investment that you made?
yes.
Well, we read these investment books, right? But you're like a living, breathing story of somebody. There's this whole school of thought out there now called buy, not build.
Yeah.
You wrote a check. So when you first got it, um, would you say it was helpful that there was a brand, there was a 6-year-old brand?
Yes. Because I basically like from the time I took over the company and the phone number and everything like that, um, calls started coming in. So I didn't have to like go tell people who we were. Granted, he did not put in like a lot of the social media marketing or different things like that that I started really pushing. But, just using Google and things like that, we already existed there. So the fact that he had a brand built, he had a name built, he had customers who called. I'd get a phone call and say, Proline, this is Daniel, and "Oh, I was looking to talk to Craig. He painted my parking lot 2 years ago. I need it done again." I'm like, "Well, we've changed hands. We can take care of you." So he was repeating customers. He was very good on quality. Made sure that he took care of the client, took care of the customer, and we had to just carry that on. And as long as we did so, then we were good.
What did your first 90 days look like?
The first 90 days, actually, ironically enough, I mean, I don't mind sharing this. So I paid $15,000 for the company, and within those first 3 months, so August, September, October, which I kind of wrapped up working around October, November, because I really didn't know much about it. I thought it was too cold to paint or things like that. In those first 3 months, I had generated $15,000 in revenue. So it was like right at it that I
Wow.
was like, okay, like this is a pretty good return on investment. So those first 90 days, man, like I look back every now and then to some of those pictures that I would post on Facebook or I've got them in my phone or whatnot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no freaking clue what I was doing. I was just hoping for the best, kind of fake it till you make it. And, that's where it was.
Is this part of the inspiration behind the franchise? Because now I'm thinking like your story is very compelling. So if you could do it, anybody could do it. Although I would say you're a pretty impressive guy, so maybe not everybody.
Well, to
But
answer
is
your
that part of the
question,
inspiration with the franchise? Is you invested 15, very quickly earn that back, and now we can all borrow from all the years of experience, all the mistakes, all the profit not made, right?
yep.
And the size of the company, that's a damn good small business you got going for yourself.
Yeah, and you're spot on, Jay. That is definitely one of the reasons for the inspiration behind the company is that if I did this and was able to kind of forge the trail to make it happen, somebody else can do this
You
too.
were the first franchise. If you, I didn't, wasn't fully clear on how you got it, the business. Now I know.
You could say in a way, technically. I mean, well, not technically, but theoretically. Yeah, bought the model,
I
bought
mean,
the
take out
business.
all the value that franchises give.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not literally, but in the spirit of it's like Ray Kroc taking McDonald's from I don't know if you ever read that book. He took it from
Oh
these
yeah.
guys that had the
Yeah.
they had the hamburger stand and he just made it better.
Yep. And yeah, well, I definitely did not do it the way Ray Kroc wound up with McDonald's. I can tell you that it was an honest
Yeah.
transaction that the business
Oh, yeah.
was handed over, through a purchase. But no, I mean that's in a way, yeah, because this wasn't just evaporated out of thin air. It didn't just show up. It was something already existing that we paid money to get involved in. And I mean, there for a while, he gave me a lot of guidance. I mean, I could call him and say, "Hey, how do I do this?" or "What does this mean?" or things like that. But from to the point of inspiring from to the franchise model, yes, because again, if we've put in 7 to 8 years worth of efforts to build out the systems, the processes, the brand, the relationships, things like that someone come in and invest into the company. Some people say they purchase a franchise. Well, you don't purchase a franchise, you invest into a franchise. And if you meet the criteria, your investment will be received and you will be awarded a franchise. So it's not like our franchise model is not just transactional. You don't write a check and you're in. We're going to vet you to make sure that you're going to fit the culture, that you're going to be
What?
set up for success.
Why is that
Why?
important?
Well, because at the end of the day, man, like this is people's lives we're dealing with. Not only is it the people who's investing in the franchise, who's wanting to go down this business venture and hopefully, grow and develop into a company that supports not only themselves but other individuals, it's also our lives. And I'll be damned if I've spent, 7 or 8 years building a reputation in our industry to have goobs come in, just write a check and then take that right down the drain and it's not going to be good. So we want to make sure that the people who are coming in that we feel that they're going to be successful. I'm fortunate to now have Kelsey on board full time. So women have those woman instincts, those gut
Yep.
feelings that us men we look at and we're like, what are you? You're crazy, and the next thing you know, they were right. So she can kind of be part of that vetting process, get those gut feelings, and be like, hey, I feel like these people will be really good, or I feel like we maybe need to pass on them. So that's what we hired her for is just her gut instinct. That's really the only reason.
So you had the no. This is good. I mean, without Jen, I'd be schlepping my wares,
Yeah, I know the feeling.
schlepping them, just schlepping them.
Yeah.
So you get married. You have a landscaping business. You're a fireman. What was it about you that your wife said, "Let's take this risk"?
The thing that I always joke about is I always tell her that because when she met me, Jay, I was coming out of one of the worst years of my life in 2012. I or 13, I guess it was, yeah, 2013. And it was I was pumping gas at the marina, on the lake. She was working there as a server. I mean, we were both just kind of trying to figure out life as young adults, in our young 20s. And I mean, other than just, I mean, in my opinion, being a nice guy and maybe a little bit charming, I didn't have much to offer. But in what I did offer is that every time we spent time together, every time we were with each other, like there was really nothing to have to like worry about. Like we always could go get food to eat. I had a house that she could come hang out at, watch a movie, things like that when we were dating and whatnot. So to go on into this investment was I kind of told her, I was like, look, like in the 3 years we've been together, haven't missed a meal yet. Like we haven't royally screwed up yet. So why not just let's take a shot and go for it? And she said, if you think this is something you can take on, then you know, I'll support you. So
Hmm.
we did, and she's been nothing but supportive. I mean, through the ups and the downs. I mean, with entrepreneurship, you spend enough time around business owners and entrepreneurs that you can wake up being on cloud nine, And then within 30 minutes of being awake, you feel like you're going bankrupt. And then 2 hours later, you're like, okay, it's not so bad. And then, like, so she's been there through all those ups and downs with me. And at the end of the day, too, now that we're looking back on it, like the numbers speak for themselves. I ran the numbers. We've grown the company 53x since we purchased it, as of this year. So like the numbers just don't lie. And we get to have a great life. We get to go spend time with family. We get to pay other people well. They can start building their lives, things like that. Like we're serving clients in a way that they probably haven't been served before in our market, in our industry. What we're building is something that can change lives and change the experiences people have with companies in our industry. So she sees the vision, she sees where it's going, and it hasn't. I mean, to my knowledge, hasn't really questioned it ever since.
What type of qualities would you say would guarantee failure in this type of business model of the ownership?
Think, yeah, the number one thing that comes to mind for that is thinking that you already know it. So we've had individuals come in here, not even just as owners, but as people on the team. We've had individuals come in and we're trying to teach them, and they respond with, "Yeah, I know," or "Yeah, I know," or "Oh, I already know that." And it's like you really don't, because unless you've done this and you can teach it, you don't actually know it. So don't tell me you know it. So if a business owner is coming in and wants to invest in the franchise or things like that, saying, "Yeah, I know," to something that you can't teach is probably going to be a quick way to not fit in well and to not do well. Um, yeah, I'm sure with our relationship, we know each other for several years now. I've always had that mentality that I try to be a sponge. I can be the most outspoken person in the room. I can be a talkative person in the room, but the majority of the time, I'm quiet. I'm absorbing the information. I'm taking in what I don't know. And even when people are talking about things that I do know, confidently know, and I could teach or say the same thing, you're still quiet because you need to gain the perspective of the other person. So if you're meeting with a client, for example, in this industry, and they say, "Yeah, our parking lot lines are a little faded. We really want," and you're like, "Yeah, I know they are. I know they're faded. We need to fix." Well, no, you need to listen. What's important to them? Are they redesigning stuff? Are they worried about the curb appeal? Have they gotten complaints about things? So jumping to the gun and telling someone that you already know when you don't in fact know is a guaranteed way to fail in this business.
Wow. What about succeed?
You have to be willing to, if you want to succeed in the business, you have to be willing to work hard and diligently for an extended period of time. The whole goal behind the franchising, obviously, when people invest into franchises, the money that they're investing into that is to expedite that process, right? But nonetheless, you still have to be willing to put in the time and the effort over that time horizon to see the results. It's not going to be an instantaneous, whatnot. But as far as business ownership, that's going to be the big thing. As far as succeeding from a service-based standpoint, it's going to be just you have to have attention to detail, whether it's in your communication and your applications and your estimating, your sales, anything like that. You just have to have attention to detail because it's a very detail oriented industry.
Hmm. What type of person would you say is attracted to this type of business? Is it like uh, couples? Is it younger, like in the 20s, like you were? Is it midlife? Like, what do you, based on all your experience, starting from just about scratch, right? What would you say
Yeah.
really suits the type of person?
I think honestly, Jay, it's going to be a variety of people. It's if I was to give a generic answer for who would be attracted to it, it's going to be somebody who has the ability to see the opportunity, but yet it doesn't necessarily present itself on a silver platter. So you have to see that, hey, you know what? This industry is a good industry to be in. It's a, recession resistant industry to be in. It's more of a niche type of a market to be in, things like that. And you have to be willing to see and be able to see down the road and say, man, if I really build this out, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for me. Like I said, you have to be able to see the opportunity, even though it's not handled on a silver platter. Like I said, when this was presented to me, and he said, "You want to buy a parking lot maintenance company?" I'm like, "What? Do you just go pick up trash or what?" But no, I did my research. I started asking questions. I'm like, oh, this is a real industry. This is a thing. And so you have to be able and willing to look for the opportunity, even though it's not on a silver platter. Obviously, with the franchise model, we want to get, serve it as close to a silver platter as possible, but it doesn't mean that it's always sexy. It doesn't mean that it's something that, everybody just flocks to, like nowadays with tech or Bitcoin investing and all these things that are all hot things to try and make a lot of money or
Yeah.
succeed. It's not something like that. It's it's a dirty job. It's something that nobody really sees gets done, but they appreciate it when it is. So
Are there are people is stripe is it striper or what do they call it? Stripers, right?
yeah,
Striping. A lot you think a lot of stripers would be interested in that type of business model or trajectory if they're at a certain level?
yeah, yeah. I think because I've been asked this by a couple other people. It said, are you aiming towards trying to attract people who already have a business and they're just trying to figure out how to launch it, or are you looking for people who are completely new to the market in the industry? And truthfully, it'll be either because there's guys that I know in some networks that I'm a part of that they've been trying at this for multiple years and they just can't like figure out how to get past that ceiling. They're trying to, but they can't. Whereas if they came on board with an established brand, with established relationships and processes and systems and things like that, we could shoot them right through it. Given that the market's right, right? Like you can't be in the middle of freaking the desert of Las Vegas and expect to have all these parking lots to paint. Just not going to
Yeah.
happen. But given the market is right, somebody who already has a striping company that says, I really want to grow this, I want to make a career out of it, provide for a family, and have employees or things like that. And yeah, it could absolutely be something like that, where maybe they rebrand their company so they could have ABC Striping doing business as Proline Parking Lot Maintenance. That's how a lot of the franchises are structured. They have to have their own business organization as a DBA, so they're doing business as Proline Parking Lot Maintenance. So then they still own ABC Striping. That's their ownership, but then they're basically licensed to be operating as Proline Parking Lot Maintenance.
When did you join the top contractor school?
And when or why?
When?
When I believe it was in 2019 is when I joined Top Contractor School. So that was before the inner circle was in existence. It was we met on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. I believe that was the first time I ever met you was a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and we had our first meeting. You were a guest on the podcast and
Wow.
or on the call, and so we had that. But yeah, I was part of that. And then in 2000, I think it was around 2021 or so, is when the inner circle got formed. 2020, 2021.
What's your advice to our audience on how to get the most out of mentorship?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about how to fail at this business. It's kind of the opposite. It's how to succeed with mentorship and networking groups and things like that. Is to be able to be a sponge. Don't walk into the rooms and think that you have all the answers. So the more that you can be a sponge and you can take things in, process them, my advice would be to be what you spit out after taking it in and processing it should be asking earnest questions, asking why, asking for explanations, things like that. Because it does two things. One, it vets the person that you're learning from. Because if you ask a person why or ask them to explain it and they can't, kind of like I said earlier, if you can't explain it or you can't teach it, you don't actually know it. So perhaps that person is just regurgitating something they heard and they're just being a voice box. They're just repeating something. So you want to vet the people that you're learning from, but also when you're asking those questions and you're having that dialogue going back and forth, all it's going to do is just ingrain more of that knowledge in your brain as well as the other person. So it's a way to kind of give that person more affirmation that they know what they're talking about, they know what they're teaching, and help them learn it even better. But also you get to learn more too, the more that you're able to speak on that with people.
What about community? How has that been a benefit or not in the growth of Proline?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in 2021, when after the inner circle got started, the community, so our business, we were really at a big like growth pivot, and I had no idea what I was doing. And so like the numbers were not looking right. Like we were growing in revenue, but not growing in profits. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, am I gonna have to start delivering pizzas to pay the bills? Like, what's going on? And if it wasn't for the community of TCS and the people that I was able to be surrounded by to kind of work through that and ask questions and learn about things, I probably would have like hit a ceiling. I would have hit a wall. So having that support, with what we're doing on going after the franchising opportunities and things like that, like I would probably be a little bit more reluctant to go down these big, go after these BHAGs, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah.
I would be a little bit more reluctant to go after those if I didn't have the community of support around us. And that's why I tell a lot of folks about TCS is when they ask about it, there for a while, it was Brian who was kind of the face of it. Everybody associated Brian Hess with TCS, TCS with Brian Hess. And so people say, "Oh, what's up with Brian?" And I'm like, "Well, Brian's a good guy. He put together a great group of people. He's facilitating these things, blah blah blah." Like, well, is it worth spending the money or committing to that for Brian? I'm like, well, no, it's not worth doing it for Brian. It's worth doing it for the community that you're getting involved in. It's worth doing it for the other contractors, the other business owners, the other men and women who are doing life together and growing and developing in unison with each other. You have people who are further than you where you want to try and get there. You have people who are going with you, and you have people that you can pull along.
Hmm.
And so, like I said, that's what you're investing in. It's not one singular person. If you just want one person, then hire a specific coach for that person. In my opinion, that's probably not the wisest thing to do because I don't believe that one person has all the answers. But you can find a whole lot of answers in a community of people.
Hmm. Yeah. What do you say to the person listening that's saying, I'm not big enough to do that, or that's not, I don't have the access to, I can't afford it, or,
It's kind of like what people say, you know, you always hear the cliche saying of when young couples get married and they're saying, well, it's not the right time to have kids, right? Because society tells everybody that you have to have kids right when you get married. And so they always argue back and say that, oh, it's not the right time. And then the old people always say, well, it'll never be the right time. Like you'll always feel like you have something
hmm.
going on or you can't do it. Same thing with business growth and development. There's never going to be the right time. I mean, like I said earlier, we're bringing on a new guy in January. He's going to be a key position in the company that comes with a significant investment and things like that. I could sit and say, well, maybe we need to grow a little bit more before we make that investment. Goes back to what we said earlier, Jay. You have to be able to see the opportunity. You have to see what can come out of it. And this is something that I've learned a lot over the last year or so, because up until this point, I've always been so like basically just trying to feel like we're trying to survive. We've been a successful company. We've like I said, we have the track record to prove it, but it's not like I feel like there's just this excess of funds or excess of availability. And I had to learn to say, instead of asking and saying, well, what's it cost? Or what's the price of it? Instead, switch the mindset to say, what's the value? What's the opportunity? There's a thing that I've read. I think it's on like a meme or something like that on social media that says, you know, people who want to be like if you're handed a backpack and says, "Hey, I want you to pay $100,000 for this backpack," and it's just a backpack from Walmart, basic old backpack. A person who is just an average Joe is going to say, "Why would I pay $100,000 for that backpack? It's only worth $10. It's on the shelf at Walmart for $10." The person that's wealthy and that has built wealth and built success and things like that is going to ask, "What's in the backpack?" Because there could be $1 million in the backpack that they're asking you to pay $100,000 for. So same thing with the group, right? With TCS, they're not going to say what's like a person who doesn't see the vision and see the big picture is going to say, well, why would I pay $100,000 for that? The person who can see the vision and knows that there's opportunity oftentimes where we can't see it is going to say, what's in it, right? Like what's in the group? What's the value of the group? So now obviously our TCS is not $100,000 investment, but it's just it does cost money. It costs time. You're only going to get out of it what you put into it.
Hmm.
So that's what I would ask the person if they say, well, I'm not big enough for it, I'm not ready for it. Well, obviously you don't like you're not. If you can't think like that, you're not. Now, if you want to still continue talking and learning about how we do what we do, you'll start to understand that you need to see
Hmm.
the opportunity before you see the price tag.
Uh, for those that want to get closer to you and or essentially be interviewed for the opportunity to be a part of your organization, franchise investment, partnership? What's the fastest way to get to the top of that um, communication chain for them to you, for our listeners?
Yeah, so if they're specifically interested in the franchise stuff, honestly, a simple, like it sounds old school, but a simple email to just literally franchise@prolineplm.com. So it's there'll be those links on our website and stuff like that that are getting built out. But that's for specifically franchising. But otherwise, social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, Daniel Wright on Facebook and LinkedIn, and then Daniel J. Wright one on Instagram. All that comes straight to me. So, and I really try to put a lot of effort into getting back with people and talking to them about what they have going on. Ever since we started really pushing out more social media content and presence, we've had aspiring business owners and industry folks like trying to ask questions about how we do what we do. And I want to try to help them win. The more that we all get to win, the more that we all get to celebrate and enjoy it together.